I've got everything disconnected from this left side except for the exhaust, saving it for last. It's the most fun. Got all the baffling off, intake tubes, everything that's in the way, so we can pull those cylinders off there anytime. I work on the left side, get all the baffling off of it and stuff. I'll get this. Well, I got all of the parts off the engine that need to come off to get the cylinders off. All the baffling, the intake, exhaust, the drain tubes, all that stuff is off of there, so I guess I got no excuse now but to take those cylinders off of there. Jim wanted me to take the cylinders off and pull the lifters out and see if they have any rust on them. In case they got rust on them, we can change the lifters without destroying the cam first. I got the number 1 and the number 3 cylinders off there. That's enough to make a grown man cry. Those were pretty nasty. I've got crap going down in through the intake ports too, so I'm going to have to pull the carburetor off and clean that intake manifold out. There was a little bit of crap just inside on the lip of the crankcase there, just inside where the cylinder sits on the number 3 cylinder. Number 1 cylinder looks pretty good, but I don't see anything that got down inside the crankcase at all, so that's good news. But those cylinders are pretty rough. The pistons were pretty rough. Anyway, like I said, it's enough to cry. But those two are off of there. Push rods look good. The one push rod on the number 3 cylinder was rusty on the shaft, the shank of it, the length of it, but the ball ends of it look really good. With plenty of oil on that stuff. Rockers looked good. Pins looked good. Like I said, the number 1 cylinder, it's not too bad. The number 3, the piston on there, I don't know. Let's see about that. It's pretty grungy. It might be salvageable, but I sure wouldn't have wanted to try to use it the way it was. I got the number 2 and the number 4 cylinders off there. They weren't quite as bad as the number 1 and number 3, but they're still pretty nasty. I'm pretty disgusted with myself for not taking better care of those. But I can see what happened. That carbon in there over the years absorbed the moisture and it swelled up and started coming loose, coming off of that. I mean, they got stuck in there probably from that. They're pretty bad, pretty nasty. Fortunately, doing a look at them, I don't see where any of that stuff got down inside the crankcase. And I've got to look in and see if I can see how the tappets are on there, how the lifters are on the face of those. The mechanic wants me to look in there to see that, although I don't know what we can do about that. I have to crack the case to get those out because they're mushrooms. They're larger on the face of them than the body of them that comes through that opening. So you have to take the case in half to get those out of there. But I couldn't see up in there. The sun is just too bright today. That's coming right in the door. Even with a flashlight, a strong light shining in there, I can't see in there good enough to see what's going on. So we'll wait till the sun goes down a little bit before I take those covers off and take another look in there. I've got these covers I got off of Aircraft Spruce many years ago, and they're great. You can see they go on there, and they're not going to keep out everything, but they're going to keep out the birds and the dust bunnies and things like that. Keep out most of the stuff. They've got a protrusion out there that the connecting rod can move back and forth in, and there's actually a little plastic pin that takes the place of the wrist pin, the piston pin, and goes in there and then rides in a channel in that, so that keeps the connecting rod from dropping down and banging on the crankcase there and damaging the crankcase or the connecting rod. And that way you can turn the engine over when everything's apart like it is now. I've got 6 of those, I think. I'm pretty sure I got 4 of them on there now. One of them is all busted up. One of the mechanics that I had working for me several years ago, he busted it up. He's kind of a heavy-handed. My dad thought I was heavy-handed. I'm a light touch compared to that guy. But I got 2 more of them around here someplace. I've got the pins for them here, but I can't find them. I thought maybe I loaned them out to somebody, but I don't remember who now. But that one works good enough to keep the crankcase covered up so that it keeps the debris out of it and stuff. I pulled the carburetor off. Some of that crap out of those cylinders went right down to the intake tubes, and they're right there in that intake manifold. And so I wanted to clean that out. And when I pulled the carburetor off, I could see a little bit of crap down in the carburetor, so I'm glad that I pulled that off. I'll have to take the carb heat box off and wash that carburetor out. Just get down in the throat of the carburetor. It won't go down into the inside of the carburetor and contaminate it, but we'll get that cleaned out. Like I said, I'm pretty disgusted with myself for letting that go that way. Well, we got that engine mounted up there yesterday. My wife saw a Facebook page just happened to come up that took that engine off exactly 3 years ago to the day. I never expected it to sit here that long. I've been anticipating getting that thing back together within a few weeks or a month of when we pulled it off of there, but I had several guys that volunteered to help me when I was talking about doing this, and all of them vaporized when it came time to do anything. There was some guys that were some pretty good mechanics, and one guy that was a specialist in fabric coating, and according to them we could get this turned out in a couple of months. I wound up I had to do it all by myself, and it took me a little while longer than a couple months to do it. I anticipated it any time now for the last 2 years. We'll see what happens now. It's just about ready, but I got a call yesterday from my mechanic that he'd hurt himself and he's going to go to the doctor today. He might have to have surgery, so he was supposed to come up last weekend, and then something else came up and he was going to come up this weekend, and now that happened. So I don't know what's going to happen now, but we'll just keep plugging away at it until he gets here. I get this engine ready so that once they get here, we can just put the cylinders on and put it back together. And I've just about got that taken care of now. And then I got to put the floats together. We've got nice weather for a few days, so I can start putting the floats together, putting the spars, the spreader bars, and the struts on them and stuff. So got plenty to do to keep busy. The sun moved around the building far enough there that I could see up in there with a flashlight, so I took those covers off and looked in there at the lifter bottoms, at the tappet bottoms, check and see if there was any rust on them, and they actually look pretty good. So that's a good thing. That's a relief. At least one thing went right or didn't go wrong. By taking the cylinders off, you can look in through the opening to the cylinder to the lifters, the tappets on the other cylinder that come in. So like looking through the number 4 opening there, you can look up and see the faces of the number 3 lifters, their tappets. And since everything is off, there's no pressure on them or anything, I could reach in there and actually push the lifters out a little ways, roll the engine over so the cam was kind of neutral, and push the lifters from the other side, push in on them and push them in, and then spin them around and check them all the way around the face of them there. So I got a pretty good look at all 4 of them, or all 8 of them, all 4 cylinders, and they look pretty good, so that's a relief. I got the carburetor off. I took it over to the shop and took the air box off and cleaned the carburetor out, got all the gunk out of it, so it's good to go. The air box is showing some rust on it, some pretty good rust, so I think I'm going to sandblast it and repaint it. So anyway, that's good news on the engine. That much of it's not foobarred anyway.